Hi, my name is Jan Cooper, and I'm a pop vocal coach, as well as a talent developer, a publisher, and a promoter. And I've worked with Grammy and Juno Award winners. I've worked with actors that were up for Oscars. I've worked with dancers, and I've worked with people that are totally tone deaf. Wait a second. Ironically, my name's Jan, and I do all the same things that you do. So what are we going to do about this? You're right. So what I'll do is I'll give up my identity once you can prove to me that you're the Jan Cooper that's the vocal coach, and that you can tell me everything that is true and false about singing. Is that a deal? Well, we may be able to shake on it, but that's a deal. Okay? Okay, I'm going to call you Jan 1. So my first question to you is this. Can everybody sing? True or false? Well, with my experience, with all these years, I really haven't run into anybody that can't sing. So the answer is yes, everybody can sing, unless their vocal cords have been pulled out of their throat, or the damage to their vocal cords is to an extreme where they can't even talk. But as long as they can speak, guess what? They can sing. But here's an interesting point. When I approach people about singing, especially people that really don't believe they can sing, what happens is they give me that crazy look like, huh? Or I get a nervous giggle. I'm sure you've seen this before. And yet when you ask them about anything else, about sports, the reaction is either yes or no. My conclusion about this is they've been conditioned to believe that you have to be born a singer, just like you have to be born a dancer. So Jan, does that mean I can sing if I don't have the genes of a singer? The answer, of course, is yes. And I'll be able to prove it to you once you start to go through the chapters of Learn How to Sing. About this idea of being born a singer, ironically, there is no such thing as a gene for singing and a gene for dancing. It's like stupid comments I get is, well, my mother can sing and my father can't sing. Why can't I sing? I mean, there is no connection there. So there are two categories. Now, there are people that are natural singers that we know of, and there are ones that are non-singers but are trained to be singers. And sometimes you can't tell the difference. For example, Bradley Cooper in A Star is Born. According to the facts that I've read, he was a non-singer before the movie. And the others were, for example, in the movie Mamma Mia, a lot of those were non-singers, but they were trained to sing. So therefore, they have the capability of singing, but it never really tried it before. And in the 30s and 40s, we had people like Fred Astaire, Mickey Rooney, and the list goes on and on and on, that were non-singers, but they still could sing. As long as they could breathe and open their mouths, you can sing. So I have a question for you, Jan. Let's see how smart you are. How come some people can sing incredibly well and others can't? Okay, you talked about the two categories. I'd like to find out what the secret is behind these great singers. Now, I'm just giving my opinion, but my research shows me that a lot of these great singers, from Lady Gaga to Streisand to Whitney Houston to the list goes on, usually have very, very high IQs. Now you're probably saying, what would this have to do with singing? But if you remember, singing is abstract. You can't see it. You can only feel it. It's not like with guitar you can actually see the playing or playing piano. In this situation, you have to be able to visualize, and therefore you've got to have a fairly high intelligence to be able to visualize how voice works. It's the same thing with dance. Quite often you'll maybe, except the advantages is quite often you can look at your feet. But once you learn how to dance, you don't look at your feet. It's a feeling, this natural flow. So with my research, at least I believe this, that people that are incredible singers catch on much faster than the average person. The other factor that plays an important role for a lot of well-known singers are that they've been brought up in a very positive environment or in a culture that really encourages singing. And when we think about it, Whitney Houston was brought up in the Afro-American church, where Elvis Presley was brought up in the church in the South. So quite often it is based on your environment. I know myself growing up, my mother encouraged me to sing, and also when I was a child she used to put me near the radio, although ironically she could not sing. It was my father that was the actual singer, but he didn't encourage it. He wanted my brother and I to become athletes because he thought that the arts was more of a feminine thing. Wow, that's incredible, Jan. I would have never thought IQ. I don't know what I was thinking. Oh, that shows you that my IQ isn't that high at this point. But anyways, IQ. Wow, thank you. Jan, my question to you is, why do you believe a lot of people are afraid to sing? You know, they break out into a sweat or they give excuses. I mean, the list goes on. And I'm sure you've seen these excuses. Over the years, I've discovered that a lot of these people that are afraid to sing are carrying a lot of baggage. Now, what do I mean by that? They were brought up maybe with a dysfunctional family where when they would go to sing, they were told to shut up by a mother or a father. Or when I ran into one student who had joined a choir and the choir master was rude and said, you better find another occupation. So I quite often think that the environment, again, the environment plays an important role. And so they're afraid to make mistakes, or they come from, I run into especially students that come to me that are perfectionists and are afraid to show their human fallibility. And yet, that's how you learn anything, whether it be singing, dancing, acting, whatever. Quite often, you've got to not think that you can do things perfect. We can try to reach that goal, and all of us try that. But I always use the joke, well, when did you take on the role of God? You know, because that's how we see perfection, which we're right to see it that way. But it's a situation that through making mistakes, that's how we become better in whether it be singing or dancing, whatever. But again, it goes back to what kind of baggage we're carrying. You know what, Jan? I'm getting the idea that singing is not just opening your mouth and singing, but it has a lot to do with how you feel about yourself, this point about confidence. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how you bring this out with students. Jan, I have another question, and it's been bothering me. I've heard this word tone deafness over and over again, and I'm just wondering, is it like a disease? Can it be cured? I mean, people say that if you're tone deaf, you can't sing a note. Well, first of all, tone deafness is not a disease. Thank God. We've got enough diseases around. And is there a cure? Of course there's a cure. But what does tone deafness mean is literally a person cannot hear certain sounds. They don't know what pitch is. And so right off the bat, people think they're deaf. No, they haven't been conditioned to hear certain sounds. So how I developed this technique was very simple. If you tell a person to take a breath, open their mouth and sing ah, they'll go ah or ah. They've got a note. Right off the bat, that is the beginning of the cure for this crazy journey for them. That means I turn to them and I say, that's your note. And I get them to repeat it over and over again. And it's what we call classical conditioning, or what we used to call brainwashing, till the brain picked up that note. Suddenly what happens is then we go from one note to a second note. But we tell them to take a little more breath and adjust the jaw. This is to deal with my technique. Then we go one note, two notes. One note, two notes, then three notes. By the end of the hour, if they're really concentrating, I sometimes have had students do 8 notes. And what happens right off the bat? They start the miracle of confidence. They start to gain the idea, oh my gosh, I really can sing. And that in itself leads them to now wanting to sing songs. So then we do the same thing over again, where it's repetition, repetition. First we start only with a verse. They have to do it 3 or 4 times correctly, then I believe them. Then we go to the chorus. So it's breaking things down into sections. So suddenly they realize, hey, there is no such thing as tone deafness. I was not a natural singer. I had to be taught how to hit pitch. And eventually they're able to tell what low notes are and what high notes are. And that's what gets me excited about this. Wow. Jan, that really clears things up for me. I'm getting a better understanding that everybody can sing. I'm ready to run out of this room and tell the whole world that I can sing, and anybody can sing if they really have the drive and the desire. One thing I forgot to mention, and I should bring this up, a good example of somebody that had pitch problems, and he was on a talk show, late night talk show, and I wish I could show it, but it's of course copywritten, was Ed Sheeran, who is an incredible singer and songwriter, and he kept, or his mother kept, an audio of him when he was about, 15 or 16. Oh my God, that was what was coming out of his voice. But he brought up a really good point, and I want this to go on to most of you. Singing, basically, there are prerequisites to it. One, you got to be smart, don't have to be brilliant. 2, you've got to be able to practice a fair amount if you're not a natural singer. And that's what Ed Sheeran said, is he wasn't a natural singer and he had to work at it. And so that's how I feel very strongly about, is that if you really want to be a singer, like any other field, you've got to apply yourself on a daily basis. Not hours upon hours. I believe quality over quantity. So I get my students to practice maybe a half an hour a day. And then when they come to class, they have questions to raise, like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Or how can I improve on this? But I always believe quality over quantity, because I've had students come in and they've practiced for 2 hours a day. And then the big question I raise with them, so what did you learn? Okay, and usually it's like, yeah, but I practiced 2 hours. Yeah, but did you learn anything about your voice or your body? So, I want to leave you guys with this introduction to my presentation of learning how to sing. And we're going to go on to, wait a second, maybe you can tell me what we're going on to.